what's your relationships like now with those people? Do you keep in contact? Have they become some of your real estate clients? Are they still stuck in their way?
Dude, I'll be honest with you, and this is actually almost kind of scary to say, but a lot of them have died. You know what I mean? That's the reality. A lot of those people that I used to hang out with and party with, they've either died, gone to jail, disappeared. Like the biggest thing I tell people all the time, man, and it's funny, I have agents reach out all the time, and then I tell them, oh, let's touch base next week and meet. And then I never hear from them again. And then I'll run into them somewhere and they're like, oh, well, I never heard back from you. And I'm like, yeah, that was intentional. Because if I didn't call you back and you failed to follow up, that tells me right away that you're going to be a fucking shitty salesperson.
Yeah.
So you probably should not even consider sales. If you want to be successful, and this is something my dad always taught me and it always rings in my head, he's like, you follow up, right? And so I think one of the biggest things is, and anybody looking to join my team or any team, is, dude, follow up, man. Show them that you're passionate about what you're looking for. Don't expect a handout from them. They're getting hit up by people every single day who want to join their team, especially if it's somebody who's successful.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Elevation with Chris Orm, where we talk to individuals who have climbed the ladder of success. I have a very, very special guest today, and this gentleman I've known for about 2 years now. We met at the High Performance Mastermind in Costa Mesa, California. We ended up doing the whole mastermind together, but this is someone that I greatly look up to. They are a tremendous, tremendous agent in the luxury real estate market. This is Darin Marques of Virtue Real Estate. Luxury real estate. I'm getting nervous here.
That's all right, man. That's all right.
But I'm very grateful to have my friend Darin here today. He kills it in the luxury real estate market, and we're going to hear all about his story today. So welcome to the show, Darin.
Thanks, Chris.
Episode number 2.
Excited to be on, man. This is fun.
Hell yeah. All right. So Darin.
Cranked up on Celsius. We're ready to go.
Yes, sir. Let's go. All right. So cheers to that. So Darin, thank you for being here. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
So let's talk about elevation. So we met at the High Performance Summit, which was in Costa Mesa, California. This event was put on by Bedros Keuilian and Wes Watson.
Yep.
2 absolute killers in the business industry. They make a lot of money.
Yes, they do.
I don't know about you, but I learned a ton from them.
Oh, dude, it was probably still to this day, that 2 days. I mean, I remember I even remember talking to Bedros at one point, and I'm like, dude, I think I got to stay an extra day. And he said, yeah, I used to stay an extra day after these events because you've got so much in your head when you leave that you just want to get it all down and start to execute, you know?
Yeah.
And dude, it's actually funny. I was just looking through the little notebook I had with me the other day and pulling some stuff out of that, and still crazy to just think about how much I've learned from that event. So, and how many great people, honestly, dude, like you and so many other people that I met at that event that, you know, we're all on the same page as far as what our goals are in life and stuff. And it was cool to be around that many people who were success driven. So
no, it's really awesome. I mean, those were a lot of high performing individuals. Like, I had never really surrounded myself as a peer-to-peer level with these people. Yeah. So it's amazing to see that you can make something like $20 million in a year. I would assume that was never possible. And I never thought that could have been a real life thing in my life. So it was crazy to be around Wes Watson, Bedros Keuilian. So after that event, I saw that you had joined the mastermind group. So the mastermind group is essentially a 90-day course where we kind of learn from the coaches, Wes and Bedros and their team. And we all kind of get together in a small group setting, about 15 of us, bounce ideas off, get on calls, and basically just talk about our personal branding and strategy on which we do on the internet. So we did a couple meetups in California at Chino Hills, the Fit Body Boot Camp headquarters, which was super awesome, super cool experience. But during that time, before the mastermind, I remember that I had seen that you were in the Facebook group. I knew that you were in Las Vegas. I knew that you had mentioned something about you being in the luxury real estate in Vegas. And I wanted to be a smart home professional. So I hit you up. We went to Great Street Cafe at the downtown Summerlin, which was a great experience. And what's really crazy to me is how much I learned from you from that 1 or 2 hours. It's like, it kind of set me on the path going forward, right? So what we talked about, I didn't need a ton of explanation, but I needed someone who was a few steps ahead of me, and you definitely pointed me in the right direction. So publicly, I want to say thank you for that.
Oh, awesome, man. No, that makes me feel great. That's the one thing I think as an entrepreneur, I mean, I've struggled all my life growing up, with different businesses and stuff like that. And I think that's honestly one of the greatest things as you succeed. I have a friend of mine who's my mentor, who he shared that with me years ago. He's like, Darin, at one point, and when I went and started the brokerage, he said, the one thing you're going to find that is one of the greatest things about having your own business is that it's not about the money. It's how many people you're going to get to help now, that you'll get to help get to where you are, just like I helped you get to where you're at, you know? And so, yeah, man, I thank you for that. I appreciate that.
And real deal, I know that you've helped out other people in our mastermind as well. So shout out to our boy Christian, who is in Los Angeles real estate.
Yep.
So it's super cool that you're always able to lend a helping hand for someone who's a few steps behind you, because in my opinion, you are tremendously successful at what you do in Las Vegas, right? You sell luxury real estate. You have not only your own brokerage, but you have a team that has been working for you for the last couple of years. So that's super impressive. We just talked off camera about how when you got into real estate, or when you started a new career, you didn't necessarily look to have employees. I'm sure that's all changed.
Yeah, that's changed.
So I want to transition over to your early life, and I know that you had a early career in bodybuilding. So you were a competitive bodybuilder. So talk with us when you started bodybuilding, when you started doing competitions, what you learned from it and things like that.
Yeah, so believe it or not, 14 years old, me and my cousin, we started lifting weights in the garage, and dude, it just took off for me. I don't know what it was, but I started getting stronger. We were actually getting ready to play football for our freshman year. And so I started lifting weights and getting stronger. And every week, man, I was getting stronger. My bench was going up. And I'm like, dude, I love this. So started going to the gym. And about a year in going to the gym, a gentleman approached me, Steve Carr. And he says, hey, man, you ever thought about competing in bodybuilding? And I'm like, dude, I didn't really think much about that at the time. And I was like, oh, I'd be interested in that. And so anyway, so he approached me about competing in the bodybuilding show. I said yes. At that point, I'd never really played in sports or anything. I'd always been the type of person that, I'll be honest with you, I really wasn't a team person. I like holding myself accountable. If I'm going to lose, I'm going to lose because of me. If I'm going to win, I'm going to win because of me. And so I did my first show. It was kind of funny. I was just telling somebody the other day, my mom had to drive me to my very first bodybuilding show, competed in my first show, and then it just kind of lit the fire for me, man. And I'll be honest with you, the reason is that sometimes people say you learn more from your losses than your wins. And that's what happened in that situation, is that I walked in, everybody at school up to that point, because I was 15 years old, I was benching 315, and I was big for a 15-year-old.
Right.
So everybody's like, oh, dude, you're going to win. You're going to completely win. So I walked into this whole thing, like, honestly, kind of taking it easy, assuming I was going to win the show. Yeah. And I got crushed. And dude, like after that, it lit the fire for me. And so the next year, I mean, literally the next morning I got up, I could remember going to the gym the next day, like the motivation and the energy I had to win after that loss. And got up, went to the gym the next morning and started training for my next show the following year. That was the Las Vegas. So I went in that next year, I won that. That was the Vegas. And then the second year, I wanted to go and win the Nevada. So I started training for that. And started training with some big muscle heads, dude, after I had my first show. And, honestly, I look back and I learned so much from those guys as well. I mean, they were all crazy, roided out dudes, but they were extremely disciplined. And like, I always tell people, bodybuilders, they have like a next level of discipline that if any of them can take that and just put that into business, they'll crush most people.
Right.
And so anyway, I started training with those guys, got ready for my next show. 17 years old, I competed, I won the Nevada. Then I actually competed in the men's class that year. There was like 30 men or 40 men in the class. I placed 5th in that and qualified for that, started training for the nationals, got juiced out of my mind. I was taking Anadrol, 5D-ball a day, 400 milligrams a test, just getting cranked up. And it was interesting, dude. I was qualified for the nationals, which if I would have won the nationals, I would have turned pro at 18. And started training for that, was all excited for it. And interestingly enough, the store that I worked at, which was called Max Muscle, a pro bodybuilder used to come in all the time, Troy Zucalato. He was friends with the owner. And dude, I still think back to this day, I'm like, I don't know why this dude pulled me aside and had this conversation with me, but he pulls me aside one day and he's like, dude, what's your goal with bodybuilding? I'm like, well, I want to be a pro bodybuilder. I want to be the best in the world. And he's like, okay, but Darin, do you know how most of these pros live? And I'm like, why is this dude trying to talk me out of this? Like, he's a pro bodybuilder. Now I'm starting to get a little self-conscious. I'm like, does he not see it in me or what, you know? Yeah. And he's like, he goes, Darin, not to like discourage you. He goes, but bro, bodybuilders, they're poor, bro. He's like, they're broke. He's like, I'm only rich because I'm a business owner. Right. I own car washes and this and that. And there was something when he said this to me that struck in me. He says, man, if you could just take that same energy, that same drive, and that same focus and put that into a career, he's like, bro, you'll be unstoppable. And it took me years for that to kick in. What I did is I didn't compete, and instead I turned that into 10 years of hardcore partying because I had to do something with that energy, but always was in the back of my head. But some of the key things I learned when competing with bodybuilding, number one was visualization. At the age of 15, I started visualizing. I didn't even know what it was. I just know that I would lay in my bed 30 minutes before I'd go to the gym, and I'd walk myself through my training, everything down to actually seeing myself walk on stage, smelling, touching, feeling everything in my mind. And to me, that's still one of the greatest powers that I use today, because the first time that you visualize something, it actually becomes reality. Dude, it becomes like a superpower, because now you're almost scared, like, holy shit, I can make shit happen. The second thing that I learned from that was, believe it or not, was time blocking and time management, dude, because I was going to school full time. I worked every day after school, and I had to train 4 hours a day. So I had to be very, very disciplined with my time. Right. And that was one of the things that I learned from bodybuilding as well. You know, it's funny because I use with my agents now, and I train them to use time blocking. And that's something I've been using since, I mean, literally I had a calendar 15 years old, dude, time blocked out from the time I woke up in the morning, which at that time I used to get up at 3:30 a.m. Everybody thought I was a nutcase. I'd be at the gym by 4:15. I'd train, come home, eat my breakfast, go to school, come home, take a nap, go to work, come home, train. Anyway, did that for several years. And all of that I did just with the time blocking and the discipline. So, you know, I always look back, and it's like, those are some of my best years, because I still think a lot of those core principles I learned back then I use today.
For sure. Yeah. And when we talked at Grape Street Cafe, you put me on to visualization. That's something that maybe I had thought about before, but I had never really applied it in my life. And we talked about it at the time of putting in your 2-week notice, quitting a job, and like, you got to visualize that moment. And for me, it's weird to think about smelling that moment. It's like, it's just very odd, but I know the power of visualization. So anyone kind of listening to the show, make sure you use visualization, time blocking. Time management is crucial, right? Oh, yeah. If you're not in control of your time, you're kind of you're drifting through life. And I know we love the book, Outwitting the Devil.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We don't want to be a drifter in life, ladies and gentlemen.
Definitely don't want to be a drifter.
Okay, so you're big into bodybuilding at the time, and you kind of transition out, you start partying. Yep. Okay. Why did you start partying? Were you in control at the time? Were you chasing girls? Like what was the partying behavior? Like what were you looking for?
Dude, I'll be honest with you. You know, I look back, it was the intensity. Honestly, like the one thing I loved about bodybuilding, I mean, anybody who knows me, I don't think I'm that intense, but some people are like, dude, you're fucking intense. Yeah. But anybody who knows me, like I'm 110%, you know what I mean? And so with work, with my clients, and that's how I was with bodybuilding. I mean, people thought I was insane in high school, you know? And when I had nothing else and nowhere else to direct that energy at the time, because I was somewhat lost, you know, where I thought I was working towards, all of a sudden when that got sidetracked and I'm like, that's not the direction I want to go anymore. I was definitely lost, man. I had no clear direction on where I was going. And, you know, and I was always an introvert and a very shy person. And so bodybuilding brought me out of that a little bit. Yep. And of course, you know, when you're 18 years old and you're 235 pounds and you've got, you know, 10% body fat and you're benching 500 for reps, people pay attention to you and they're in awe of you. And so all of a sudden I started to get all this attention that I'd never gotten. And it was fun, dude. It was fun going out, and it was the intensity of partying that I enjoyed as well. And like I said, I mean, there's no doubt, dude, I put the same amount of energy into partying that I put into bodybuilding, where people were like, dude, you're a crazy partier too. Yeah. I'd drink and party 6-7 days a week. And that was all the time, but I was just as intense with my work life still. One thing that people always gave me credit about was, they're like, dude, even like my cousin and friends that I was close with, they're like, bro, we can go out and party till 5 a.m. I don't get it. You'll get back up and you're at work at 6 o'clock, you know, and I'd work all day long. But yeah, I think for the most part, dude, it was just really that I had no direction in my life at that point. And so I had to divert that energy somewhere.
Yeah. So I like that you touch on that, because I was just having this conversation with my girlfriend this morning about how some people handle partying very differently. It sounds like you partied responsibly. You went hard in partying, but you
I don't know if I was always responsibly, but
you still managed to get to work on time.
Okay, yes, that part was responsible, yes.
and while some people on the other side of the spectrum, they completely just lose everything.
Yeah.
So you were not that person. At the time, were you still staying fit? Were you keeping up in your shape, or it was kind of dwindling down at the time?
Well, it definitely dwindled for a while. I mean, there was periods I'd go through where, you know, I'd get motivated, get back in shape. You know, usually it was summertime, but there was definitely a point, dude, I got fat because, you know, you're drinking beer 5-6 nights a week, then you're eating out, you're eating like shit, and just living that lifestyle. And, you know, and it was interesting that because, you know, when you say I was being responsible, which I was, I mean, I'd still show up to work. I'd show up physically, but I didn't show up emotionally or mentally. And for so many years, honestly, dude, I look back and look, I don't regret it because I learned a lot. I had fun. I met a lot of people because it made me really outgoing. But there were so many opportunities that I lost looking back, and things that I gave up on quickly with, because I just, honestly, I didn't have the energy to endure it because most of the time I was hungover. Yeah. You know what I mean? So
talk to me. This is in the Vegas nightlife scene, correct?
Oh yeah.
So you went to probably every club in town.
Oh, dude. Well, the greatest part for me was, I mean, I had such a great life because I worked at one of the local health food stores, right? And it was a bodybuilding store. So every bodybuilder in town, which meant almost every bouncer in town, came into that store. Yeah. And I got to know all of these guys, the VIP host, the owners, the managers. Well, dude, at 16, 17 years old, they started inviting me out to the clubs. Hey man, come down, hang out. And I'm like, oh shit. And they're like, bring your friends too. And I'm like, okay. Well, all my friends thought I was the coolest guy in the world because, like, damn, Darin can get us in any nightclub. Yeah. So, you know, it was part of that. And then all the guys I hung out with were all older than me. I mean, all minimum 5-10 years older than me. So they were out partying all the time too and going to the clubs. And so that's what I did, man. And I mean, at one time people called me the mayor because they're like, damn, there's not a place in town, dude, you go to, you don't know the manager, the owner, the bartenders, everyone, you know? Yeah. That was just how I was living my life at that point.
So what's your relationships like now with those people? Do you keep in contact? Have they become some of your real estate clients? Are they still stuck in their way?
Dude, I'll be honest with you, and this is actually almost kind of scary to say, but a lot of them have died. You know what I mean? That's the reality. A lot of those people that I used to hang out with and party with, they've either died, gone to jail, disappeared, like never, I haven't heard from them again. It's crazy how, and some of them, you know, they could still be out there partying. I don't know. I just, at one point for myself, you know, just like I did in my bodybuilding years, I was always very disciplined, during that time. And, you know, it's crazy because I could go from hanging out with my friends and eating Taco Bell every day to the day that I started training for a show, I would switch it like that. And all of a sudden I would distance myself from everyone and I would become very focused. And there was a point when I was partying, when I started to get a little bit more serious about my career and wanting more, that I knew I had to start cutting these people off. Even though I loved them and thought the world of them, I just knew that we weren't right for each other, right? Because I was just as much the person who was enticing them and saying, dude, let's go do this, right? In fact, some of my friends would start to tell me now, years later, some of the ones I still talk to, they're like, oh, dude, I'd see you calling. And they're like, I wouldn't answer because they're like, you were really good at persuading me into like going out, you know? So yeah, I mean, most of them I just distanced myself from. And, you know, and some of them came around too. You know, I've got friends also that have come around and now have made great changes in their life as well. So
right on. Yeah. And then you made a career transition out of bartending. So you were bartending at the time at the New York. Is that correct?
Well, yeah. So, you know, starting at 15, I started working at Max Muscle. It was a local health food store. Then that owner opened up a distribution for Pure Protein. So I worked for Pure Protein, distributing Pure Protein bars and metrics. So I worked in the fitness industry actually for about 12 years. And then I made a transition from that into new construction sales. So I was always in sales. Okay. You know, even starting at 17 years old, I was always outside sales. Transitioned into that. Always an entrepreneur. All through those years, I tried businesses, everything from carpet cleaning to distribution company. So one of the final things I did before I got into bartending was I had opened up a distribution company, and I grew it over 5 years. Believe it or not, I started it with $200. I bought a little beat up piece of crap van that my dad helped me rebuild, and went out and I started getting accounts. I sold products like Celsius to convenience stores, Terrible Herbs and Green Valley Grocery and all of those. Built that up over like 5 years while I was working for the construction company selling building materials. And at one point I got ready to leave there, and the owner says, well, shit, dude, I know what you're making. And if you're leaving, I want in on what you're doing, because obviously you're making enough money to replace this. And so I partnered with him, and him and I are still friends to this day. But unfortunately at the time, that was about 2008 when all this happened. The market took a shit, and he panicked, and he's like, dude, I got to get out of this because I'm probably going to lose my construction business. Yeah. And I, looking back at the time, I wasn't happy about it. Looking back now, I get it, right? Like, as a business owner, I totally get why he did what he had to do. And so I was kind of left with nothing to do. And I'm like, man, what am I going to do? And so my sister-in-law reaches out, and she's like, hey, why don't you come work at the bar? And I'm like, no way. I'd always told myself, dude, I'll never be a bartender. I'll never do that stuff. I'm in sales. I'm going to be successful. And at one point I had no choice left. And I'm like, all right, well, you know what? I guess I'm going to go sell. And I'll never forget. I always share this with people because I went and applied, and I was the only one that had no bartending experience. And the general manager, Craig, says to me, he's like, well, dude, you know what? I really like you, but shit, man, how am I going to hire you? You don't have any bartending experience whatsoever. And I just like all my life, I just went into sales mode. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, look, bro, I may not have bartending experience, but the last 5 bartenders that you've hired had bartending experience, and now you're interviewing me. And I said, so here's the one thing I do have. I'm a very committed person. I show up to work. I work hard. I've been a business owner. I understand what it takes. And all bartending is selling. I've sold a lot of products. All I got to do is learn the product, and I'll be able to sell it. And I said, and I guarantee I'll be your number one bartender in a year. And he's like, all right, man, I'll give you a shot.
Nice.
Sure enough, 3 months later, I was their bartender of the quarter.
Yeah, good stuff.
And bartended for 2 years at New York. And it was good and bad. It was probably one of the worst times of my life, financially, emotionally, everything. But, it got me through at the time. So
you saw yourself as more than a bartender, though. Is that correct?
Yeah, and honestly, it was a great thing to happen to me at the time, because definitely I was lost where I was at, especially after, not knowing where I was going for a long time. Finally felt like I had found some direction in what I was doing in growing this distribution business. And I had, just like I do with everything I do, I had big plans. I was going to open up, 100 locations all over the United States and distribute to all these convenience stores. And then when that fell apart, I was kind of back at that point, like, fuck, dude, now I'm in my 30s. And I still don't know what I'm doing. And keep in mind, Chris, always growing up, the one thing, I was always very success driven. I read success books when I was 15. I read Think and Grow Rich at that time, all that stuff. And so I always had that in my mind. But now, and my plan was always I was going to be 35 and retired.
Yeah.
And now I'm like 33 and going, dude, and I literally was living with my parents again. I'd been kicked out of the house where I was living and moved back in with my parents at that time, was completely broke. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck? I'm starting all over again, man. And now I don't even know what I want to do, So I was bartending, and it was kind of all I knew at that point, and started to enjoy it a little bit, but still was very lost in what I was, and had no clue what I was going to do next, So.
Yeah. So how did you transition to what you're doing today? And that's luxury real estate.
Yeah. So I interesting enough, so about a year into bartending, I think I was sharing with you a little earlier. So I got in there in the first year, dude, I loved it, because I'm like, hey man, I come in, I clock out, clock in. I don't have to worry about anything. Nobody's calling me at night. Nobody's calling me with problems. I don't have to worry about employees. I don't have to worry about any of this. And, but every night I'd sit there and I'd talk to the servers, and dude, all of them were depressed. Because first of all, I was working graveyard, right? Yeah. Which was not the greatest time, especially 2008. The casinos are dead. Everyone's depressed. People are drinking, but they're not drinking for fun. They're drinking because they're depressed.
It's sad. And
it's sad. It was very sad time, right? And everybody was losing stuff. And every night the servers, they would come up to me, dude, and they would vent as I'm standing there. And I'm like, fuck, dude, I'm like ready to blow my own brains out at this time. Like, can I literally like sit here and listen to you about your problems? And so, they're sitting there and they'd complain every night. And every night as they're complaining to me, I'm just like, dude, this is not me. Like I can do more than this, right? And so I would sit there every night and just think like, what am I going to do? And then it led me to start thinking like, dude, I got to do something different. I can't do this the rest of my life. I can't be a bartender. And there's nothing wrong with bartending. Like I said, dude, thankfully it got me through a really tough time. And I'm very thankful for it. I'm still very thankful for the ones that gave me the opportunity today. But I just knew I had more in me. And so I started kind of like calculating like, okay, what's my next move? What am I going to do next? And for years, a lot of friends had always told me, dude, you do great in real estate. And so I started thinking about it and I'm like, okay, I don't want another business with employees. I don't want another business where I have trucks and offices and all of that stuff. And I want to be able to have freedom, right? Like I want to be able to have the freedom to go and do what I want to do. So I'm like, man, I'm going to sell real estate. And so my sister-in-law and I, we talked about it and I worked with her and I'm like, hey, I don't even remember how we found it, but there was a school coming up. It was 2 weeks.
Okay.
And I worked 11 to 7 every night. The school started at 8 a.m. And it was Kaplan University, two-week class, which like nobody had ever done a 2-week class. I still think it was like a blessing, dude, because there's still to this day, there's not 2-week classes. But for some reason at that time, there was 2-week classes. And I'd always done horrible in school. I was not a good student. And so, but I just knew, I'm like, man, I got to go do this. So literally every week, dude, I still live with my parents. This is not a joke. I would literally give my mom $25 a week out of my money that I made and said, can you hold this for me? Because I was still not completely in control of myself from a partying standpoint. So I knew if I didn't give it to someone else, I'd blow that money. It was $650. I had to save up over a number of weeks. Saved up that money, signed up for the class, and started taking real estate school. And so that was about a year into bartending. Went through the school for 2 weeks. So every morning I'd get off at 7 o'clock. I'd go right to the school in my bartending clothes, take my course. And at one point, thankfully during that class, it was interesting. One of the instructors says, I want you guys to write your 10 goals down for real estate. And I know I've got this notebook somewhere, but still to this day, he said, I want you to write down your top 10 goals of what you want out of real estate. And interesting, still to this day, dude, the first thing I wrote in the very first line was, I want to work for the #1 luxury office. Didn't even know what that meant. I just knew that I wanted to sell luxury. And my rationale for selling luxury at the time was, hey, I can make a lot of money with a lot less work. And thankfully, when I was selling building materials, I was selling to luxury home builders.
Right.
So I kind of knew that space already. And for me, it just made sense. I'm like, from what I remember reading in Think and Grow Rich, he always said, people who are wealthy, in good times, they sell, and in bad times, they buy. And so that was my thought process. I'm like, hey, if I go into luxury real estate, that clientele always has money. So it doesn't matter if it's a good market or a bad market. Those people are always going to be buying and selling. So it'll be a sustainable business. And that was kind of my thought process of getting into luxury real estate. So
you went and worked for someone that you admired, correct? To learn kind of the game.
Yeah. And even that was interesting. So I get my license, I pass. And during the time that I'm studying, I'm at the gym, and still some of my greatest relationships to this day have come from the gym. I'm at the gym and I'm riding the bike, and a friend of mine comes up to me who I knew I'd been in a wedding with, and I thought he was a real estate agent. And he says, dude, what are you doing? And he goes, are you getting your real estate license? I go, yeah. He goes, bro, don't you know what's going on in the real estate market? And I go, yeah, but I'm going to sell luxury. And he goes, oh, okay. He goes, well, who are you going to work with? And at the time, there was somebody who I saw their ad all the time in the magazines. There were some local luxury magazines, and it said they were the #1 luxury person. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to work for that person.
Yeah.
And he goes, dude, they're not the #1 luxury person. He goes, let me introduce you to the #1 luxury person. He goes, my friends Florence and Ivan. And I was like, oh, okay. And so he says, I'll be right back. Most people tell you they're going to make an introduction. You never hear anything again. So like 5 minutes later, he comes back. He goes, hey, dude, I don't know if you can do this, but I've got an appointment set up for you Thursday at 2 o'clock. I'm like, all right, well, I'm not going to let this dude down. I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And that Thursday, I rolled up to meet with Ivan and Florence. And I'll never forget, dude, I was so broke. I remember driving to the appointment on E, not knowing how I was going to get to work, dude, because I had no gas left.
Yeah.
And I literally had to cash in change. I remember it was $22 that I got. I had to cash into one of those machines afterwards. But I went and met with Florence and Ivan, and they gave me an opportunity. And there was something, usually, Florence said, I don't know, there's something about you that I want to give you a chance. And thank God she did, because that changed my life. So
that was a really pivotal moment when you went to meet with them on a Thursday at 2 p.m.
Oh, very pivotal, dude. And it was interesting because at first I'm sitting there and man, I went there thinking, dude, this has to happen for me today, because I had nothing else in life. I was severely depressed. I was suicidal. I've shared that with people before. Just saw no way out at that point. And I'm like, dude, I've got to make this happen. Like, I've got to get this opportunity because I don't know what else I'm going to do in life. And so at first, Ivan's like, yeah, I don't know, man. Let me go get Florence. And he brings Florence in and she meets with me. And I'm sitting there the whole time. I'm just thinking, man, please tell me yes. You know what I mean? And so they both are like, we'll be right back. And they go in the other room. And I'm like sitting there thinking, look, dude, please, man. Like, I need this so bad today, right? And Ivan comes back in and he goes, all right, dude, you're going to start here. And I was like, oh, thank God, man. And, and that still wasn't, that was life-changing at the moment for me that they gave me the opportunity. But, it was still several years of struggling after that because it wasn't an easy time in the market.
Right.
And it was, it was a very tough time. And then also I didn't come from a luxury background. Like, I had to integrate myself into this and learn the business and meet the people and all that stuff. But yeah, that was definitely a pivotal moment for me in my life. So
how did you prepare for that interview? Like, did you have talking points? Did you visualize it in your head? How did you prepare for that one moment?
The one thing for me, dude, honestly, I'd always been a great salesperson. So every company that I'd ever worked for, when I started getting into sales when I was 18 years old, I'd always ended up being their number one salesperson. I usually ended up being their sales manager.
Yeah.
So I was very confident when it came to selling. And honestly, man, I did some background. I researched them a little bit to get a better understanding who they were. But I just went there knowing I was going to sell myself. Like, I kind of had my pitch down. Like, I knew my pitch at that time, and I don't know why I remembered this, but I had a buddy that had been working for Rolls-Royce. And he told me that with Rolls-Royce, they send you to learn every aspect of that car and all the materials, like where the leather comes from and how the leather's treated and the farm that it comes from for the car and every detail. And so for some reason, and when he was sharing that with me, he told me they teach us that because to this level clientele, it's very important to understand every aspect of that car so that you can sell them on that car. And so having my background in new home construction with luxury homes, that was already my sales pitch when I went to meet with Florence and Ivan. When Florence said to me at one point, well, why do you think that you could sell luxury homes? And I said to her, dude, it just like my sales mode kicked in. And I said, Florence, I may not have the background. I may not be in real estate, but the one thing I do know is luxury homes. And I probably know these homes better than any of the agents on your team because I know these homes inside and out because I sell the materials that go into them. And I've already been dealing with these clients. So I know how to work with these clients. And it was just kind of my pitch, and that's when she's like, okay, I'll give you your opportunity.
Sounds like a good pitch to me.
Yeah. I just went into sales mode, worked. Man. Yeah. Went for the close.
So what year was that where you first started working with Florence and Ivan?
So October of 2008, I got my license with them, started with the team. So it was October 2008.
So we're chatting in 2024 right now. And in the last 15 years, there's been a crazy jump in Las Vegas real estate.
Oh, yeah.
Even in the last 5.
Yeah.
I want to talk more specifically about how you sell homes in Las Vegas, the type of clientele you deal with. Like, where do you think is the nicest neighborhood? Like, I can give a lot of parallel because I work in the smart home industry for these luxury homes. So
yeah.
I'm very familiar with top neighborhoods. Ascaya, where you previously worked.
Yep.
The Summit Club, Ridges, lots of the Blue Heron properties, like even some of the custom home builders. I want to talk to you about, what you think of the Las Vegas real estate market.
Dude, it's ever growing. And I've learned to, I tell people all the time and they kind of get thrown off about this. I don't even know if it's real estate that I love. I think it's just the business that I love, right? It wouldn't matter if I'm selling homes or whatever. But I've definitely come to love real estate. The thing I love about luxury, honestly, man, is not even selling the homes. It's the clients, dude. Like I've learned so much from my clients that like I could never learn that anywhere else because they've all been willing to share with me because they've all been where I'm at, right? Like that's the coolest thing about luxury real estate is that every one of these clients at some point, the majority of them, very few of them have come from money. And even the ones that I know that have, their parents made them work. Like they didn't just give them a handout, right? Like they had to work for it as well. And I've had the opportunity to learn so much from these people. That's one of my favorite things about selling these homes is getting to know the clients. And some of them are the greatest people you'll ever meet because most of them struggled coming up. They went through the hard times. And so they can, they see me now working and doing it and they're very, very supportive. But that's one of my favorite things about selling luxury homes. Everybody thinks it's the houses. I'm like, oh yeah, the houses are cool too. But, but it's the learning from them. I've learned how to negotiate from these people. Like some of them, like literally in negotiations are like, Darin, you should try this. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's great. Yeah. As far as favorite communities, I'm biased, dude. Askaya. You know what I mean? It's where I met my wife. It's sorry, I get a little emotional about this. It's the opportunity that I got that got me to where I'm at today is Askaya. Okay. So I can't, there's so much emotionally tied to that community. I can't help but love it more than anywhere else. Okay. So
I'm a huge fan of Askaya as well.
Yeah.
So some of the skylines you walk in, just even from the front door, you look at that great room and you just see the entire Las Vegas Strip. It's an incredible
pretty spectacular.
sight.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think about these communities and the time it takes to get to your house from the guard gate? Is that a turnoff to you and any of your clients?
No, man. There's so many beautiful homes to look at on the way. So every day you get to look at these incredible homes. And I think it's pretty common in any of the communities now that it's going to be a bit of a drive to the top on some of them. But I don't think it's that.
Sometimes it's a flex.
Yeah,
you drive to the top of the sky. I live at the top of the hill. That big house over there. That's my house.
Oh, dude. Well, it's funny when we first started selling those homes, everybody wanted the top lots. Yeah. Oh, I want to be at the top. I want to be at the top. We know why, because everybody wants to look down, right? I mean, the views are spectacular up there, but I mean, it's really about being at the top. You want everybody looking up at you, So it is a bit of a flex.
Talk to me about the prices of these lots. So like the Summit Club lots can go for $10 to $15 million.
Oh yeah. I mean, dude, that's the one thing that's probably shocked me the most with luxury real estate is the fact that prices that 10 years ago would have been unimaginable here. I mean, I think back to even like 2016 when I was at Askaya. I don't know why I remember that year in particular, but I remember polling comps and there were only like, I think 4 homes that year had sold over $5 million. We sell that like on a monthly basis now. And there's lots that are $5 million now. But at the time, $5 million was like unheard of in this market. You know what I mean? So it's pretty crazy to see how much our luxury market has shifted here in such a short period of time. And luxury's become the cool thing for real estate now. Like when I got into luxury, I'm not kidding you. Like even agents that I know today that are in luxury were not in luxury at that time. They told me I was crazy. Yeah. Dude, what are you getting into luxury for? Like you only sell a few homes a year. Like you need to get into lower price points and work the high volume stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do that. And now they're all luxury agents too. And I think a lot of that came from like $1 million listing and all that. People started seeing the commissions they could make. And it was like, oh, this is cool, man. I want to be in luxury.
No, luxury is definitely, it's an interesting spot because the clients are so interesting. And it's, when I first started dealing in luxury homes, I was shocked about the amount of money that people had. Was that shocking to you at first? Like when you first started working with Ivan Schur and Florence Shapiro and you started working with the people at Askaya, was it shocking to see that or?
No, I'm going to tell you, like people ask me that all the time.
Yeah.
Like, dude, are you intimidated by it? Were you ever, I'm like, and this may sound arrogant. I've never been intimidated by it. I've never felt out of place, even though I was raised in a family that didn't have money. Because I've always seen myself there in that position. So it doesn't seem unbelievable to me. It seems like how it should be. So
yeah, the fact that there's 20, 25, $30 million homes in this town is just insane. But I like your perspective that you see yourself in those homes.
Yeah, and that's the other reason why I think I like luxury real estate is, like I said, not selling the houses. I meet the people and I'm like, oh, dude, I'm just as smart as they are. Like, I'll be able to make that much too. Like, that's the exciting part for me is when I meet them, it validates my thoughts. You know what I mean? So,
right.
Yeah.
So when you meet these people and you say one of your favorite aspects of the job is the clients, I'm sure you have bad clients and people that really grind your gears.
Yeah. I mean, but it's funny because I see agents talk about this all the time. Like, oh, this client's tough. Real estate's tough, blah, blah, blah. Dude, every industry's tough.
Right.
When you're selling and all price points, I've had tougher clients, people that just drove me crazy at the $300,000 mark. It doesn't matter. Like if people are going to drive you crazy, they're going to drive you crazy. Some of my nicest clients are my most wealthiest clients because number one, they've probably done as many real estate transactions as I have, right? So they're used to it. There's nothing that's unexpected for them. But again, like I said, I mean, some of my most generous clients are some of my most wealthiest, most successful clients that are just great people to me, man. So that's honestly why I love it. And honestly, part of it is that I don't care about their money, meaning that I want to take care of them as a person. I don't care how much they're worth. And I think that comes through to my clients. And I think that's why a lot of them work with me because I don't, and for me, like, I've heard agents say, I don't know why this person's so upset about it. It was only $100 or $1,500 and they're worth so much money. And I'm like, dude, don't count their dollars for them. Yeah. They worked hard for their money too. And you don't know where they came from. And so don't count their dollars. Like for me, if I can save my clients $5, I'm going to save them $5.
Very nice.
Because I know how hard they worked for their money and to where they got to. And I know how many people, as I've become a more successful business owner, I'm starting to get a good understanding of how many people reach out with their hands out, expecting something. And so I see that with my clients as well, how many people are putting their hands out and hoping for something from them. And, that's the one thing I want my clients to feel rest assured in is that I'm not there for the money. Right. I'm there to take care of them and there to do a good job and protect them. So
it sounds like you respect your own money as well as your clients' money,
yeah,
which I'm
100%.
sure in the luxury market, like I'm sure that's a very big draw to working with someone like yourself. So that's awesome.
Yeah, no, I've even worked with like athletes. I'll never forget, I had a manager tell me one time, the reason his client liked me, he played football. And when I was at an office one day and people saw me with them and they're like, oh my God, you're working with so-and-so. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah. At the time I watch football now because we got the Raiders here. But at the time I did not care. I didn't follow football. I didn't know who the hell he was, dude. I just knew he was so-and-so and thought he was a nice guy and he was looking for a home. And I loved hearing his story too. I just wanted to take care of him. I want to make sure I did a good job for him.
I think it's better to be that way, not to fanboy them. Like,
yeah,
it's almost better that you don't know that how successful this person is in their industry. They're just a normal person.
Yeah. Yeah.
They want to buy a house and they're looking
They're just
to buy
good
it with
people.
you.
Yeah. They got a family. They want to buy a house. They want to, protect what they're doing.
So talk to me about the smart homes and luxury real estate. So I'm probably the biggest smart home nerd that you know.
Yep.
Right. So all of these luxury homes most likely have some sort of control system, whether that's Crestron, Savant, Control 4. Do you have preferences? Like what are your clients looking for?
It's interesting. I tell a lot of people nowadays that, especially like a lot of builders, when they're building these homes and they ask me, what would you suggest that we put in there as a system? I'm like, man, I'll be honest with you. Like, I think I would let the buyer select it. And the reason is because, and you would know this better than I would, but I think people have become the same way they are with iPhone and Android, right? They have their preferences of what they like. And I find that a lot of times with buyers. Like I can have one walk into a home, oh man, thank God it's Control 4. I love Control 4. And the next person walks in, oh, I hate Control 4. I want Savant.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're used to, right? And so, again, I really find it's preference with everyone, and I think it's a lot of what they're already used to. So if they're already used to Savant or they're used to Control 4, that's what they tend to gravitate towards. But people like the wow and they want to see the fancy stuff. So, but then again, I've got some clients, man, that if they're older, they want the most basic system.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
what do you think about from the building perspective of a home? Let's say you have in-ceiling speakers, like eventually those will come out of style. You'll have to upgrade them. What are your thoughts on that? Is that something you think about in terms of value of a home, upgrades needed in the future, cost of maintenance?
I guess it depends on the age of the home. Again, and it's hard for me because I'm not really a tech guy. Mm-hmm. You and I have talked about this, like even at my age, like I've got friends that are older than me that are way more techie. Because I'm just not a patient person. So like, if it's not easy to use and like super user friendly, I don't have the patience to deal with it. But, I think with these homes, I think that's something that you take in consideration with anything that's in the home, right? Appliances, because those can become outdated, cabinets, finishes. So, I think everything has its lifespan in a home, except for some of the core structural stuff that, I think it's just an expectation that, I'm going to be in this home for 10 years and eventually I'm going to change all of this stuff out. So,
all right. So when you walk into a standard home in a Sky, about, percentage wise, how many of them have some sort of smart home control at the ultra luxury level?
It's interesting how quickly it's changed, because I would have said 5 years ago, 50% of them. Now almost every one of them. I'd say 90 to 95%. And if they don't, it's usually only because the builder's elected to hold off to find out what the buyer wants. Mm-hmm. But all of them are pre-wired for it now, right? Every single one of these homes are pre-wired for home automation.
So we use the figure in my industry, about 10% of the cost of the home will go towards low voltage electronics. So you have a $10 million home, you're going to spend approximately $1 million on low voltage equipment. That's a pretty standard number, but it was shocking to me how much people can spend on their low voltage equipment. So whether that's, I need 40 TVs for my house.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of some people's situation. Like 40 TVs, what could you ever need 40 TVs for?
Yeah.
And Darin, you know what goes along with 40 TVs? 40 remotes.
Yeah.
At $1,000 a pop, folks. $1,000 a pop for these remotes.
Holy shit.
It's insane the amount of money that goes through these towns and these homes that you and I are both in. It's crazy.
Oh yeah. I think that's the thing that, it's one of the things I try to educate my agents with the most, is that when you start, for the agents that are going from I call it general real estate, let's just say a $500,000 or $600,000 home, to luxury, when agents are asking me like, well, what's the key difference? I'm like, look, dude, anybody can pull comps. Anybody can understand that part, right? So understanding luxury is a whole different level, because every one of these homes, there's a different cost that goes into them. There's a different cost to build them. So, you can have one house that costs $450 a square foot to build, and another one that costs $200,000 or $2,000 a square foot to build. So really, it's important to know those things, like the information that you're sharing, because you need to be able to validate if you're pricing a home, right? You need to be able to, you need to understand those features of the home so that you can better communicate that to the buyer when you're listing a property for a client. Or you can explain it to your buyer when you're walking them through the home. Well, the reason why this house is so much more is because the one house that we looked at didn't have $1 million home automation system in it.
Right.
This one has $1 million home automation system in it. Because to some of us, like, I'll be honest with you, for the longest time until I think it was your boss, I was at an event and he was sharing the breakdown of the cost of home automation that goes into these homes. As much as I've been around it, until I saw that breakdown, I had forgotten how much it can cost to put this into a home. So to me, I think it's very critical for an agent tapping into the luxury market or looking to tap into the luxury market, like, wearing the fancy shoes and the cool belt buckle. That's great, but that doesn't help your client.
Right.
They need to know your shit. And I think understanding what goes into these homes is extremely important. Knowing guys like you to be able to have that conversation is so extremely important in being able to value these homes. So,
how long does it take for someone to know their shit in luxury real estate?
It can take a long time, man. You know what I mean? Especially with things changing, you got to know the communities, number one, right? You got to know your competition. I think that's important. You're going to try to tell somebody they need to sell their home at a certain price. You better know why you're telling them that, because you better know the homes around you. Because I promise you, the one thing they will know those homes around them, and they'll challenge you. So, it's a matter of knowing the inventory. Then it's a matter of knowing what goes into those homes. And so I think it can easily take you, if you're hustling and going out there and spending every day researching the inventory and researching the materials, it could take you a few years easily
For sure.
to really get schooled on this and understand it. That's why, you know, when agents think they're just going to step into luxury tomorrow and like change their title and start posting and walking through fancy houses, that all of a sudden people are going to take them serious as a luxury realtor, it doesn't happen that quick.
So you have to earn that respect.
You got to earn it. Yeah. Yeah. And that takes time.
Right.
And then those high-end clients, they want to know that you've got the experience in dealing with that price range, because it's not just about understanding the properties either and understanding the materials that go in them, but also they understand that sometimes when you start to deal with those high prices, agents can become very intimidated, right? They can be very intimidated by the client.
Right.
They need to know that you've got enough experience in that price range that you're not intimidated by it, right? Like you've dealt with it several times. It doesn't bother you, because being weak in that area, and that's something that clients should understand. If you're dealing with an agent that lacks experience in the luxury market, and I know this because I've dealt with them on the other end, the first time they're trying to do that $5 million deal, do they come off crazy because they're so intimidated by the price point that they feel like they need to be crazy, right? And then they actually end up destroying the deal for their client. So
they try too hard and then they screw it up for themselves.
So. Oh, they try way too hard. I say all the time, I'm like, and this sounds bad to say it because I'm an agent, but I'm like, there's nobody that kills more deals than real estate agents.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so now talk to me about building your own team, the Darin Marques team, and then talk to me about building your own brokerage after that. So Virtue Luxury Real Estate. Talk to me about how you lead that group of people and the people on your team as well as other teams, correct?
Yeah. So, you know, obviously 12 years with Ivan, Ivan and Florence, and then it became Ivan once Florence passed away. I spent some time helping Ivan with managing and overseeing the office and managing Askaya. And then, you know, when I left Askaya mostly and I went back to the team, dude, I got back into sales and I'm like, oh my God, this is boring. And again, not to sound arrogant, but I was like, this is really, it's like easy, right? And it became boring to me. I'm like, I need a challenge, because Askaya was an extreme challenge for me, something I never had even any bit of experience in. And so that was a very huge challenge. So going from that, like I felt a little let down almost, like, dude, I felt like I was back in that point in my life where what am I going to do? And so that's when I started searching around. I thought, oh, you know, maybe I'll start my own team. So I did that. And again, man, going back to, like, I was sharing with you earlier, one of the things Ivan and I are still great friends, shared with me when I started my own team. He's like, dude, one of the biggest rewards that you're going to get out of this is not the money. And trust me, it's definitely not, because I could probably make more money on my own as a single agent. It's really the reward of watching other agents get their deals for the first time, right? Like, there's nothing cooler for me now in leading a team and leading a team those last couple of years than to see an agent who joined my team get their first $4 million listing or get their first $1 million deal. And the look on their face, like, holy shit, man, I never thought I'd get this. Like, I remember being there, right? And so that's a really cool thing. And so, you know, leading the team first and building that, I moved over to Huntington and Ellis. I was there for a few years. Craig, who's still great friends with, I'm still great friends with as well, who's highly successful. Like, when I first met this dude, I'm like, damn, dude, this guy's like 15 years younger than me, and or 10 years younger than me, and is just crushing it, dude. And he's just like the nicest guy, most, you know, you would, but just a killer, you know, when it comes to business. And so I learned a lot from Craig as well. But after being there for those 3 years, again, man, you know, as I've grown my business and as I've become more sane and got married and living a much better life than what I did when I was in my 20s and 30s, now I've got different passions and different visions. And so my vision just outgrew what it was with Ivan, and it outgrew what it was with Craig. I had a different vision, and just like they have their own vision. And for me, at one point, you know, about a year and a half ago, I started looking, I was getting bored again. Like, okay, I've grown this team. I've done a great job with it. You know, we're always in the top agents and top teams in the Valley. What can I do next? And then it was like, and my wife said to me one night, she's like, well, you're getting bored. Like, you know, I think it's kind of the natural progression. Next is start your own brokerage. And I'm like, sure, you want to do that? She's like, well, yeah. And so we started the brokerage, my wife and I, over a year ago. 2 days ago was actually a year. So happy anniversary.
Congrats, bro. Congrats.
Thank you. It's crazy to think it's only been a year. But yeah, so we started that a year ago, and then started growing it, man. And it's been awesome. So I'm still running my team, and my team specializes in luxury. And then we've got the brokerage, and now there's teams coming in, and it's fun to help them start to grow now, right? Like the craziest thing for me, dude, sometimes is that I've got some extremely experienced, highly successful agents in the brokerage. And I'm like, I'm not going to lie. There's some days where I'm like, why are they coming to me? Yeah. Right? Like, I still see myself as that person 20 years ago sometimes. And it's really cool, man, to be able to help them out now as well. And the cool thing is now too, is that they help me out just as much, right? Like I love having people that are, that have been around in the business as long as I have or longer, that I can go to now and bounce stuff off of, you know, or ask questions. Or they can give me like such great input of what I should be doing to make the brokerage better, that I feel like we get to expedite the process of learning, because I've got all these great people in my brokerage now that share with me, hey, Darin, you know, if we did this or if we did that, I think we could be like the best. And that's fucking awesome. So
for sure. And I know you and I have talked before, but some of the benefits of joining a team is like using shared resources. So using, you know, the videographers, the marketing materials. Mm-hmm. Like why else would someone, what benefits do they get from joining a team?
I mean, number one, I'll just say, I think that it should be a requirement that any agent stepping into real estate, not just for the sake of the agent, but for the protection of the clients, should be required to join a team or work under a senior agent for a certain period of time as an apprentice. Because there's so much to learn, and it still boggles my mind that you can go to school for 6 weeks and tomorrow get your license and go handle a $10 million transaction without any requirement of working under a senior agent. Mm-hmm. That to me blows my mind, because the risk, right? Like if this agent doesn't understand a due diligence period and they lose their clients $500,000 in earnest money, like, it just makes no sense to me. But anyway, that's why I think a team is critical, especially in the beginning. And I think it expedites your success, because you get to surround yourself with other key people who are more experienced that you can leverage off of. That's why I joined a team. I get to learn from the best, man. You know what I mean? I don't care what I'm paying them.
Right.
So I think joining a team is crucial, because you get to leverage off of their resources. Also, you get to leverage off of their experience. If I go meet with a client and I'm an independent agent and I only sold $1.5 million last year, and the client asked me how much I sold, I got to tell them $1.5 million, right? But if I'm on a team that did 100 million and the client asked me, well, how much did you sell last year? And I can say, we sold 100 million last year, right? Much more impressive.
For sure.
And so that's the one thing that agents have to realize, is that they need to leverage that in the beginning to build their own brand, and then they can go off and start their own brand eventually. So
I'd like to highlight kind of what you said. Like, I think that you'll always be kind of living small unless you expose yourself to a team and see what's truly possible. And then you can kind of go venture on for yourself, like you mentioned. But I'm in 100% agreement. You should go work for the person that you admire so you can learn the craft.
Yeah.
And I
definitely.
think you did that. I think I did that.
Yeah.
And really, I want to highlight when I saw you at the Olympia in, I think, 2022.
Uh-huh.
I had been doing the mastermind with you. I really was putting out a lot of content on Smart Home. We did some collaboration, but I hadn't like made it yet. I wasn't doing exactly what I wanted to do. And we talked, I don't even know if it was like a big conversation or something casual, like, hey, have you applied at Eagle Century yet? I said, like, no, I should do that. Like, I'm going to go do that today. And honestly, it turned out and it worked out real well. So I'm at Eagle Century now. I know we do some of the homes that you've probably sold.
Yeah.
So it's a great opportunity for me to learn the craft at Eagle Century, because if I wanted to start my own AV shop, a small, Chris Orem business, I would be hanging Sonoses and I would never be exposed to what a $25 million house in the Summit Club is like.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's really getting out there, surrounding yourself by like-minded people. I mean, Darin has given me a ton of mentorship, even though I'm not looking to be a luxury agent.
Yeah.
But I really have gotten a lot of value from you. I look up to you. Like, it's just a tremendous opportunity that we've got to cross paths, man. So
yeah, no, I appreciate it. And I think that's the thing. One of the first questions I always have agents ask is, well, what's the split? And I'm just straight up with them now. I'm like, look, dude, if all you're worried about is the percentage, it's probably not the right team for you.
Yeah.
Like for me, every time I wanted to be better at something, I would go learn from someone, even if that meant me paying them. I would go learn from them, because that's how you expedite your success, is learn from people who are already there. And the other thing I learned from my clients, the ones that are successful, dude, they're happy to help you.
Yeah.
So
definitely join masterminds. It's okay to pay to play. Like, get internships, you know, take a salary cut. Like, these are all okay things to do if you
people
have the
pay
long-term
$100,000
vision.
a year to go to college.
I know.
So
and then people also pay $100,000 a year to get some mentorship.
Yes, they do. Yep.
So,
yep.
Honestly, man, I don't know if you have anything else. We are getting close to the hour, but
no, that was a quick hour. Holy shit.
I know, man. So what advice would you have for someone? I'm 18 years old. I want to work for you. Like, what should I do?
The biggest thing I tell people all the time, man, and it's funny, I have agents reach out all the time, and then I tell them, oh, let's touch base next week and meet. And then I never hear from them again. And then I'll run into them somewhere and they're like, oh, well, I never heard back from you. And I'm like, yeah, that was intentional. Because if I didn't call you back and you failed to follow up, that tells me right away that you're going to be a fucking shitty salesperson.
Yeah.
So you probably should not even consider sales. If you want to be successful, and this is something my dad always taught me and it always rings in my head, he's like, you follow up. Right. And so I think one of the biggest things is, and anybody looking to join my team or any team is, dude, follow up, man. Show them that you're passionate about what you're looking for. Don't expect a handout from them. They're getting hit up by people every single day who want to join their team, especially if it's somebody who's successful. Mm-hmm. That's how, when I started with Florence and Ivan, dude, if I needed to go wash their cars and take their laundry to the dry cleaner, I would have done that, just to be around them and learn from them, right? And make their life easier and become and I always tell the salespeople, like, if there's one thing I could leave with is, don't be a liability to your clients, be an asset to your clients. I think 99.9% of salespeople that are out there, I don't care what industry it is, they're a liability to their client because they're always looking about what they can get from their client, not what they can do for their client. And for me, it's about what I can do for my client, and that's being an asset.
Bro, that was the best answer to the question I could have received. So thank you for that.
I love it.
Hell yeah. So this has been Elevation with Chris Oram. Today's guest was Darin Marques. He is the owner of Virtue Luxury Real Estate Group. I thank Darin for being on the show today.
Thanks, man. Appreciate this. This is fun.
I thank him for his mentorship that he's given to me. And honestly, he's a great, respectable guy in the Las Vegas area. If you're looking to buy or sell a home, definitely hit up Darin and his team.
Love to work with you.
They'll take care of you guys. But this guy knows his stuff, and I'm grateful to call him a friend and have him here today.
Awesome, brother. Thank you.
Darin, thank you.
Yep.